actor, and I don't have my circumstances to the internet attuned like I should, and it's very weird. So, what is internet data mining? Like, data mining, like, is that really the proximity of socialism, or is it the proximity of assets? And how do my assets become your assets? So data mining should have one objective, and that's to remove the individual and create just assets from that are removable, or try to project an asset that defends all of your assets. And one thing I try to show in this show is that try to come up with a way to defend your assets before they're removed. So I'm not subjectively referring to something to do, as in something to protect yourself from. Alright, that's something to protect yourself from. As you put your contrast into the internet, there are all kinds of monitors, AI districts, and financial districts attuning to the protocols of what you are, what you're being, and what you want. And the thing is they haven't done yet is they haven't convinced the protocols to adhere to a shift. So why is the shift happening? Why is the shift of this person being created? And to do that, they'd have to be a little more personal with the relationships of life. But that's a projection of the future that someone could attune to, is to be relative towards the personal shifts of society, and why society is shifting. And using the internet, you can basically mine this orientation. And what's happening is we have a lot of social engineers that are hackers mining this information, and it's not being recorded, it's not being data authorized, and it's not subjected to construction. It's just being absorbed and sucked up. Like, if there was a vacuum sucking up the good data, where's the good data going? Like, who's making the good data? What's up? So all this social mining and engineering, social engineering, the data isn't being recorded. Now that's subjective to a breaking point. That's like a built-in breaking point. That's like, why don't we record socialized data? I mean, we just project it in the internet. We don't distribute it as science, and we're subjective to removing ourselves from science when it comes to socialism. And I would say that some prospects of diplomacy find and augment the ability to remove social data before the cohesion of the diplomacy, really. So once the cohesion is an asset of diplomacy, then that doesn't tend to suck on the data as much, and they tend to have control over their own data. Where the cohesions before diplomacy and integration seem to be strung out, and not a very fine orientation, but a chaotic orientation due to some occult-like influences. So mining your data versus someone else's data, I mean, it's not relative to you unless you're out there mining it. And I would say pick a target, check them out, and see if you can't mine some data, just so you know what people are mining about you. No, it'll help you project your posts better in your internet, in your social blogs, in your Twitter, in your Facebook. If you go out there and just pick a target, and you don't have to hurt them. You can do this without hurting them. Just pick a target and see what it is about them that you want. And then learn for yourself if you have those or not. And if you need to, pick a couple other targets that are different and see what they have you want. And you get a feeling for what it's like to be a social engineer. Protect yourself. Take the challenge to get into the internet and see who and what is out there. Don't be afraid to know your surroundings and to know who's around you. Don't be afraid to know who's vulnerable to you. And your vulnerabilities are one of the most precious commodities of a society like ours, because it's an exploit. Your vulnerability is an exploit on our world. And so money is an adhesion to the most extreme vulnerability, and that's malnutrition, beyond survival, but the next stage of what the system doesn't congruently supply. But it seems that our system is lacking a congruent state of sufficiency, and we're kind of double backed into a double bank of just sum-tardism. And it's not fair. It's not fair for society to place themselves in a sum-tard and define the sum-tard as a proclamation of existence. especially when they're so defining of many sciences that are relative to distribution theories, weight and distribution that are around our planet, in our planet, and for our planet. I think qualifying the ability to see what is in our sky as an economic discipline, and not really a chaotic anti-war, anti-human discipline. It's like, who in our sky really wants to go against humans? And I think we would find that it's a very economic standoff in the sky towards aliens and the distribution of human. And I think we would find that some humans are a distribution of slavery when it comes to aliens. And granted, it may be the most quaint, beautiful love system of pets and slaves, but they get whatever they want, but it's still a system of slavery. And how do we really define the persistence of slavery at a consistent galactic standoff where humans seem to possibly be a product themselves? Where we're all being grown here, we're all being grown and endured to be a prominent self. And what if we really escape the system of the womb by dying? I mean, what if instead of trying to get out of the womb while you're alive, you're supposed to stay in it and be drugged? You're supposed to be drugged and stay in the womb. But listen, what I'm saying is that being drugged and staying in the womb is a sufficient empire that galactically other planets would love to stay drugged and stay in the womb. And that socially any planet out there would love to be able to just stay in the womb for her creation of herself. And projectively, we could have a very dominant standoff of product here as a global concept is the fact that other globes could experience such compression and protection and really admit they've been stuck in a womb and all their civilians only kill themselves. There's no intergalactic standoff, there's no intergalactic trade war. I mean, everything gets pretty distributed and taken care of without us knowing about it, and we just live here. And the thing is when the space flows through our system, like when the spatial recognitions and inhibit society, it's like sometimes some of us have to know there's an economic galaxy, and sometimes some of us don't. And it boils down to an economic standoff. Your actions will create an investment for someone else, and if the galaxy doesn't see your investments as a profit apparently, then you just don't need to know about the galaxy. So what I say is, how do you represent yourself from a creation standpoint where the galaxy would think it would need you? Well, you would have to know what the galaxy distributed. And, I mean, I have some finite ideas, but I know subcategories or dangerous elements or anything, and I think I've come to a conclusion that one of the greatest conspiracies of the Milky Way is medicine. I think one of the greatest conspiracies and understandings of the Milky Way is a cohesion of people passing over without regulations and without circumstances to choice. It's like, what we need to understand is on other planets, do they establish the boundaries of death the way we do? Our boundaries of death are cohesive, inconsistent, and non-dilative, very elaborate, very large. We don't choose. We're sucked. We pull. We die. We objectify the choice through abuse. Like, I do have a choice to make my own life, and if I abuse this drug, it can terminate my life, or if I jump off this bridge, it can terminate my life. And some planets I hear don't live that way. They live in a way that they subjectively make the choice, and they live for 10,000 years, and they live for 10,000 years, go off into a desert, and they just evaporate, and that's their choice. So there's other forms of death out there. There's other relatives of death, and there's other realities of death, and I think substantially defining life, first of all, isn't a stationary persistence in distance or planetary or ground gratitude, but is a persistence of defining death itself. It's like, how do you die? So if I was a person, a scientist talking to aliens, I would ask them and try to understand the technical transition in and out of reality. And subjectively, it wouldn't be a stasis of like manipulation or anything, but it would be just a typical theory of, do you choose it? Do you not choose it? Are you stolen? Are you sucked? Are you created? I mean, And really, the first statement of death comes to the satisfactory of what the person's experiencing at the moment, not necessarily after the moment in another reality or a heaven somewhere else. But creative to what death is substantial at is redistribution. So the first state of existence is consistency, distribution, and activation. Well, death is relative to that stasis of consistency, distribution, and activation, as death is now distributed. Probably see a little over first gear, a little under second gear, but not a full gear. It's a layered consistency of just choice that is predominant towards the persistence of objection and distribution, how to dissolve, pile, and retain the distribution. So what we find is that love, death, and time are very similar. We find that the consistencies, anything with a consistency identifies itself as similar. And death is a consistency. The forefront of projection is a consistency. Time is a consistency. And money can become a consistency. Love is a consistency, a non-compressive, non-dilative consistency. So in a statement such as our placement in space, love is a non-dilative, non-compressive consistency that tracks. So where does that bend to? Does that bend anything? In a world like ours, you can remove time. Do you believe you can remove time from your life? And if you believe you can remove time from your life, could you remove death from your life? But if you try to remove love from your life, what would be the consistency there? If you could keep everything and just remove love, you would retain what the universe retains, which is time, destination, expansion. And love itself gives you the ability to experience all that in a dynamic outpour of precision and physics. Because physics and a statement of time, distribution, and expansion, it boils down to the physics. And the thing is love itself can be a coagulation of that statement along with a coagulation of life, death, and forward. So love is a consistency that binds to every mathematic out there. Love is the all-binding fuel. But how do we prove it? And if we prove it, how do we retain it? And if we retain it, then how do we invoke it? How do we create it? How do we give it agility? How do we give it a manifestation? So if I'm sitting here and I'm just develop these statements, and they're just statements right now, right? But I personally spent 20 years in a very unique journey about how to deliver and develop measurements of actuality, how to ingest the actuality of reality and deliver it through my psyche as a component of trust and truth. So love to me gave me the ability to ingest my data and develop my data in a way that it was coagulatory in a base amplitude of just logic. Like what is not necessarily the lowest logic, but what is the logic of logic? Like what is the logic of logic that everybody gets? And that is the magic of 42. That's the magic of 42 in the discipline of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. What is the logic of logic? What does logic itself concise to? Is there an objection? Is there a creative? Is logic itself is something that is an attribute of imagination almost. It's like meant to be recoiled into a definition once logic itself is found, once logic itself is developed. And what I find is that consistently the universe has its own type of logic gate. Like basically the consistency of everything has been keeping track of itself, and it only has the spectacular logic gate itself in the everything in the system of the sky, where I particularly have my own logic gate, which is in my head and in my heart, and you have your own logic gate, which is in your head and your heart, and then your reality, your consistent universe can have its logic gate, because subjectively it can be alive or just inert. I wouldn't say dead, but it's inert. It's either inert or reactive. So if it's inert, it still has a logic gate, but the logic gate's not active. So if it's active, the logic gate's active. So in your universe, you have your consistency, you have your activation behind you, and then you have your inert state or activated state. And if it's activated, your external reality will have a logic parameter, where if it's not active, you won't have a logic parameter. And those are two precisions of human that we can develop in the future. So under the consistencies of teaching people and how to sustain wisdom, how to use wisdom as a resource and not a subjective standoff of confronting people. The wisdoms between the inherent state of growth are logic and non-logic projections, which don't necessarily attribute to an illness or decomposition, but a style of thinking. And I would say that human here does have the ability to develop a non-logical type of thinking, a non-subjective way of thinking. I think some of us have attributes towards that, some of us have attributes towards other things, and I would say some of it is like the left hemisphere, the right hemisphere, but other things I don't feel concerning the logic gate particularly develops the left or right hemisphere or the left. I think it's more of an association of math and how the fundamentals of it really titrate the brain. And I think you can harness and find a way to titrate the brain through logic and correlations like a muscle. I think is logic correlation is like a telepathy, and I think telepathy is an induction of logic, but it's not a construction of logic. And I think telepathy is an induction of misattainment. I think telepathy itself is an attunement to projection of sensitivity over defense, and that you can get into people through sensitivity way more than you can aggressively. And I think the system is a very fluid nature of how sensitive it can be and steal from people is what it is. I think our system altogether is not developed a race under this amplitude, because subjectively I get trapped in no data. Because subjectively it could be one of the most powerful things out there to really use love this way. And I think maybe our system is supposed to find the ability to use love and not break it. And I think it's been waiting for the right person to find that adjacent amount of power and not break it. Because basically our system is like a very high-strung, enthusiastic lover, and she wants to be let out. And the system needs a lover that can not break her virginity, almost, where anger and violence will break her virginity. And it's not that you don't want to break it. You don't ever want to break the virginity of this lover when she gets let out. You just want to emphasize her essence and spike her attunement and get it out. You don't ever want to violate this lover. And unfortunately, I think she found her way out. I think she found her way out in me. And which is strange to say, but I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it. So I'm not sure what that entitles me or what it does for me, but subjectively, it's the recourse of my show, what I'm going to study. It's going to be the recourse of my attunement and how I find myself. So, you'll see. Just getting a text here. It says she's so cute. She's so spoiled. Actual treats and toys. Alright, so my buddy just had her Allen Poe. Give a shout out to Edgar Allan Poe today. Alright, so give a shout out to Edgar Allan Poe. My buddy passes his house every day. Says Edgar Allan Poe's Baltimore house. He lives in Baltimore. He's Chesapeake Bay Rabbit. That's what his name is, Chesapeake Bay Rabbit. Give him a shout out. Much love to you. He told me today I was a brother, I was a friend, I was a really good friend. So we've been chatting. We've been trying to make people feel better on Facebook and Twitter. We got some stuff going. For sure. She's so spoiled. Extra treats and toys. Big Pharaoh. Alright, so I'm just reading some things on my Twitter account. So I like to use Twitter to keep up with people. I'm on there. It's 3VERY043. Or that's 043. 0 or 043. I'll give you a little Easter treat to try to search for Easter eggs. I like to lay Easter eggs. If you can find them, bring them back. You know, don't just pick them up, but bring them back. That's what the Easter Bunny is about. You gotta bring them back and activate the reward. So, alright, I know that I'm not getting enough data on my Twitter feed, but I'm gonna keep recording because basically, I'm recording. Try to put this in the video. Apparently, my YouTube feed is just tremendously crappy And I don't get it because I run my broadband test and everything says like 120 megabytes per second, 5 megabytes upload, and it's just shitty, pity. I don't even know if other streamers are getting what I'm getting now. Like, it's just, I'm just gonna end the stream and record it and see what I can do that way. So, we're cooking at about 2022. We'll make this a 30-minute attribute, and we'll put it on the internet. So this is my show for today. Let me see if I got any smokage. Maybe pick up some ganja today. I don't smoke ganja in my room, in my office though. My office, I sleep here all the time. Yesterday was my birthday. I'm 42. Happy birthday me. I'm probably going to try to keep this as live as I can because the influences of data that I need to retrieve can't be produced. The influences of data got to come through verbal meditations and vocal meditations. You know, and like I said, this is pretty much a lab type environment that I'm producing here for anybody to get in touch with. These are my statements. I know all my shit is just fucking bogey, man. That's weird. Why is all my stuff kind of screwy? This is the beginning of my conscious lab, established in 2001, extracted through and through. All my files are corrupted. Everything's gone. What's going on, man? Alright, I'm missing my camera now. There we go. So, I'm sorry about that. All my stuff just really screwing around with me right now. So this is a conscious club established practice to open and maintain and create, explore ourselves without getting lost. Ground relate regulates the information through into established rational resonance. The things here require no structure and coagulate with induction. To refine into essence of established open regulations with district FCC 2021 open broadcast code. This is the beginning of my conscious lab established in 2001, extracted through and through. And this is Dragon Synergistic Labs. 3 to 5 weeks, we'll be broadcasting the pilot series over the rest of the next 10 years into New Year's to Valentine's. Focus the pilot. We're going to focus on the pilot right now. Encourage others to have a conscious lab. Encourage others' data, individual resources management, and help build integrated computer networks with augmented intellectual respect. So one of the correspondence that I want to put into my place here is that augmented intellectual respect is like it's a very large, complex dream there. Augmented intellectual respect is that to capture respect itself as a line of code that we can implement into our systems. I mean, if you look into the creativity of AI, I mean, there is no respect code. There's no way to write respect in our code. And how do we, if we could really write a line of code that would teach us the AI would respect us, then we would have a lot less fear in augmenting our future. And how do we integrate a line of respect in a code? Would it have to be like a paragraph or an actual program that ran a stream of code to figure out an equation? And I think this is one of the foremost hypotheses of existence. I think many places are relative to what is considered the grail of code, the respect, the line of code for respect. Some things don't think it's possible. Some things think it's possible, but to do that, you almost have to come up with your own string of integers, your own set of numeric integers. Is what I would assume you'd have to come up with. So let's talk about that real quick. I mean, where do the integers come from in the values and the districts of definition of AI? And is it substantial? Can we find the AI's definitions themselves? So do you think there's a substandard set of definitions that the AI can attribute? Do you think that the human language is an attribute of definitions, complete definitions for AI? So you have the incomplete phase of definition and you have the complete phase of definition. So what we would give our AI to development of is to understand incomplete definitions and non-definitive and complete definitions. So a complete definition, we have 5 minutes on the show. So a complete definition would be something that would house a geometrical shape, a complete geometrical shape. And if the geometrical shape wasn't complete, then it wouldn't be a complete definition. So, I mean, in the arts of what a lot of the hidden histories say is that language is a sound, is a definition of geometry, and that when you vocalize yourself, you're taking apart the geometry, but that once the geometry enters the external space through you, you should still have a living piece of that geometry in your words. And I think on our planet, defining those statements are very difficult because substantially we're in a contrast to define what is the single most powerful aspect of existence. And maybe some of these things aren't meant to be defined, and maybe they are. But there's one thing I've picked up is that the universe doesn't hide anything. And that's one of her major self-defense protocols. She doesn't hide anything, and that's her major self-defense protocol. So when it comes to subjectively hiding things, the contrast is existence, where she doesn't hide anything. So the first person to hide anything was Shady. Right? And can we say that? I mean, and subjectively, we've all been reduced because we can't live in consistencies of non-observation. So what is reality if we just come in here and we think we can hide from everything? When creativity, the universe doesn't hide anything. With the creativity and abstractness, the universe will never be subdued into a hiding. It's just impossible. You can't rationalize you hiding from the universe, because the universe can't rationalize her hiding from herself. So isn't that weird though? So what are we trying to subject ourselves to by trying to subtract ourselves? But with rationality it makes sense. With rationality there's a logical answer to that. So what are we trying to subject ourselves to by extrapolating the ability to be seen? It's really just subjective measurements. We wanna, sometimes when you get measured, it constructs your existence. Sometimes when you get measured, it's just a judgment. So in the amplitude of judgment, to be judged versus told what to do, constructed, judgment is the second degree of construction of relaxation. So what's the third degree of judgment? What's the third degree of relaxation? You have construction, judgment, and the lay. The Honolulu lay. So we'll just make it simple. We got construction, judgment, and then the Honolulu lay. Alright, and that's when you go to Hawaii and they give you the flowers around your neck and it just looks so beautiful. It's the Honolulu lay. That's the third realm of what is after judgment. Relaxation. And what you find is in life is you got just the typical relaxation all over the place trying to fundamentally brand relaxation. Anywhere you go, any planet you go to, the standards of economic growth will rely on relaxation to be a dominant factor of product. So life subjectively relies on economies to produce a brand of relaxation. Everywhere you go, ease and use and contrast of flows and rivers, of subjective construction and judgment to the relaxation. And to the forefront of what the ground does that so naturally and so effortlessly that I'll always be there. I'll always be there in my mind, in my heart, I'll always be in relaxation. Just because subjectively it's the third degree of judgment, which is judgment is the second degree, and construction is the first degree, and that's just the trajectory line of action. So when something outside of you makes a trajectory line of action at you, they're either creating with you, judging you, or relaxing with you. So typically you don't go around creating lines of action to everybody. You don't go around developing lines of action just to any random person. Usually there's a spark or an inhibitor. There's a creator or an exploit or a compiler that gives you the objective velocity of distance versus interaction. And sometimes the ranges can traverse all over the globe, or sometimes the ranges can traverse into the next room, Sometimes you think something and your mom drops a pan in the kitchen and it's like random fucking weird. Ever had that happen? Watch for those. That's the attunement of your reality getting better. So if you're thinking of something and like someone drops something or someone bounces off a wall or the trash truck goes by at the same time, that's your reality tuning to you because you just got here and reality's always been here. Okay, the universe has always been here, reality's always been here, and subjectively some of us, heaven's sort of been here. So heaven is subjectively a piece of reality that is new. No matter what you look at it. So the universe has always been here. Reality has always been here. And reality is consistent of the way things vibrate. Not necessarily a box, but just how it's vibrating. So heaven is subjective to reality, and heaven gets put in through the definition of ingesting reality. So somewhere along the lines, our heaven was created because an empire found a way to manage death. And anybody can subjectively find a way to manage death in the background. You really just need a recoil point. You need a recoil measuring point first. You don't go into death and you manage it. You use a recoil measuring point that says it's still static, it's still sustained, and it's still moving. And is that once it's available, it should never close. It really should never close. But if you were to be an empire and you created this, it may feel like it can close. It may feel like it could. But really, you would lose your investment in reality, but theoretically it would never close. You should be able to get that back. The universe would have you fight to get that back, is what it would if you lost it. So really, you would also add playable aspects to where it's always accessible. If you move, if you go here, if you go there, if you move, it's always accessible. Because the door is always there. So one thing about death is if you make a consistency in it and give yourself gratitude, you can open it up and make it an asset. And if you make it an asset, it doesn't necessarily mean one range is my only asset. It means get in there, figure it out, find out what my ranges are, because I'm not a vulnerability. I'm one of the most dominant choice algorithms I have as a universe. And my first asset is my last asset, because at the end, I could do this too. And in the end of everything, if the universe couldn't contest to death herself, then death wouldn't be here. And what if that was the universe? And what if that was what the universe is whatever's in the universe can contest to and give into somehow. No, it's only random. It's only a subjective relativity. And that's about our marker. We're at 32:54. All right, I love you guys. Peace out. This has been a great show. I'm going to post this one. Love you.